Hey, Nick Peterson here, and I'm taking a short break from the Hamilton soundtrack to bring you this thought experiment. It's actually a real experiment. So, again, Nick Peterson here. What I do is I help people think more accurately about building a business that will facilitate the life that they want. It's very different than having more. Right? Everybody thinks more is the answer, but the reality is we want to get closer to something. We want to get closer to having more free time. We want to get closer to spending time with our family. We want to get closer to sleeping well at night. We want to get closer to paying off our mortgage. All those things, right? So it's really about getting closer to the things that matter, not just accumulating more stuff. And here's something super interesting. They've done this study multiple times, hundreds and hundreds of times, and it's going to highlight the difference between the way a kindergartner thinks and the way a business school student thinks, and it's probably not going to end up the way you think it's going to end up. So they do this experiment. It's called the marshmallow experiment. And what they do is they give you however many sticks of noodles, right? Spaghetti, dry spaghetti, and a marshmallow, and you can manipulate things however you want, but you can't make the marshmallow lighter. It's the one thing you can't do. And they do it with a group of kindergartners, they do it with a group of, first and second graders, and they do it all the way up to CEOs, lawyers, doctors, business school graduates. And who do you think, you could drop in the comment, who do you think makes the biggest towers, the tallest towers in a short amount of time? Right? Because they're a time limit. I think it's 18-minute time limit. Kindergartners make the largest tower every single time by a significant amount. I think the average kindergarten makes a 21-inch tower. 21-inch tower. The CEO comes in second with, but it's between 15 and 17-inch tower on average. And the business student, the graduate from business school, actually finishes last. Lawyers are somewhere in the middle. Why can kindergartners build a higher tower from marshmallow and dry spaghetti? It's a question. And the answer is when you watch them, it becomes apparent. The assumption we all make is, that spaghetti noodles can handle this much weight, the marshmallow weighs this much, so on and so forth. Uh, and that's killer because the marshmallow actually weighs more than most people assume. So, why do kindergartners do better than business school graduates? Because business school graduates don't even start making their tower on average till about 13 to 15 minutes in. They plan, they manage, they figure out some hierarchy of communication to work together. It takes them 12, 15 minutes in that range before they start building their tower, which means all the assumptions they made have to be true in order for their tower to work, and it turns out they're not because marshmallows are heavier than we all think they are. Now, kindergartners on the extreme other end, they don't talk about it, they don't plan, they don't develop, a hierarchy of communication. What they do is they figure it out while they work. So they pick up the marshmallow, and all together, they're all just trying to figure out how to make a tall tower, right? There's no politics, right? There's no posturing. There's no planning under assumptions, right? Planning doesn't really work. If we assume that something is whatever, 45 pounds, and we plan accordingly, and then it ends up not being 45 pounds, the plan doesn't work. And so the point being, kindergartners always make higher towers because they take a series of micro steps, which means they don't make a bunch of assumptions. They don't spend time trying to figure out who's in charge, who delegates to who's overseeing, who's doing the work. They don't do any of that. They just start building, and they find out that the marshmallow is heavier than we assume it is 10 to 15 minutes before any of the other adults do, right? So what happened? Because the business school student, right, the graduate from business school that's making a 13-inch tower would have made a 18-inch, 21-inch tower when they were kindergartners. So how come they got worse at creating things? And the answer lies in the politics, the planning, and the number of assumptions they make. Kids don't make assumptions, right? If you watch kids, they talk while they're figuring stuff out, right? They're speaking to themselves. They're walking around and they're going, "Ooh, dog. That's a dog. Ooh, dog," right? That's how they're figuring. They're not operating from a set of assumptions that we often operate from as adults. So what does that mean? That means in your business, you can plan and plan and plan and plan and plan, and you are likely to fall way behind somebody that has not planned, has not developed this hierarchy of communication, which are important, but not when we're figuring something out. After it's been figured out, how do we manage it and maintain it? That's where all those politics and stuff can be useful. But when we're figuring something out, we have to do it. There is no benefit to sitting back, figuring out who's responsible for what, trying to figure out what are we going to test, what are you going to test, what am I going to do, yada, yada, yada. Because what happens is when we do, we find out a whole bunch of the assumptions we made were not 100% accurate, which means our plan is no longer, it is not an efficacious plan anymore. So kindergartners outperform CEOs and greatly outperform business students, business graduates, students that graduated from business school, because, right? And they're the same. Like a kindergartner that goes to business school is likely to get worse at creation because planning, because of assumptions, because of the need for somebody to be in charge, somebody to be above somebody, somebody to be below somebody, that doesn't work. So hopefully that's helpful. But in your business, the only useful thing you can do when you're creating something new, not if you have something that works, right? Measure, manage, maintain, that makes sense. But when you have something new, the only thing you can do is start failing under control, right? Controlled failure, and modify your assumptions as quickly as possible, meaning identify the assumptions that you are making and stress test them, and then adjust your assumptions appropriately so that you can continue to move forward and build the thing that you want to build. Hopefully that's useful. Talk about it a lot in on my daily emails, talking about all this stuff, just thinking a little bit better. And bumpersbook.com, you can actually buy my book, which talks a lot about why the doer, the kindergartners actually building the thing, counterintuitively are less handicapped than the CEOs thinking about doing the thing. Okay, so bumpersbook.com if you want to read that book. Hopefully it's helpful though, right? Tag somebody, share, and just hopefully it's valuable and it gets you unstuck and it encourages you to do things instead of having a perfect plan, because a perfect plan is not perfect once our assumptions fall apart. Cool.